Okie welcome back, and we are at chapter 9, Transcendent, Lisa Beeson. We left off chapter 8, weird substitute teacher. She ran into history class to get away from him, and we're back at chapter 9. I didn't see Mr. Briggs for the rest of the day, which calmed my nerves considerably, and the day went on as usual. That is, until I was almost through diving practice. I had just pulled off a flawless back somersault with a twist, with barely any splash. Coach Timmons was cheering me on as I came up from the water. "Awesome job, Kira! That was great!" he praised. I mentally patted myself on the back and swam over to the side. As I pulled myself out of the pool, I caught Briggs staring at me through the small window in the door that led to the hallway. He was talking on his phone, and when he saw me looking towards the door, he ducked out of sight. That was it. I was done. I dashed into the locker room before the rest of my team, quickly rinsed off and put on my school uniform skirt and white-collared short-sleeved shirt with the school insignia on the pocket. I had forgotten to bring my street clothes. And then I towel-dried my long hair and put it up in a top knot. I hastily said goodbye to my coach and made a roundabout way to the front steps so I wouldn't run into Briggs. Then I waited for Hector. Sadie usually got a ride from her friends to dance class after school, and Hector's soccer practice normally ended just before diving practice, so he was usually outside waiting for me with the car to drive me home. But of course, today, of all days, he was late. I sat on the front steps and scanned up and down the street for his car, and that's when I saw the black sedan parked down the street. In it were two guys in suits and dark sunglasses looking right at me. Oh, heck no, I thought. My scalp tingled as I stood up, and then Briggs opened one of the front doors. "Oh, Kira," he said as though he didn't... Oh, no. "Oh, Kira," he said as though he didn't already know I was out there. "Do you need a ride home?" he asked. I looked into his eyes and saw that he had no intention of taking me home. I didn't wait for him to take another step towards me. I jumped down the stairs and ran in the opposite direction of the sedan. I didn't know where I was headed. I just knew that I had to get out of there fast. I heard Briggs shout after me and curse. Then, quickly looking over my shoulder, I saw him hop into the suited guy's sedan as they pulled up to the steps. It was time for evasive actions. I made a hard left onto the next street and pushed my legs and lungs to work harder than I ever had before. I thought to myself, why did I have to wear a skirt instead of khakis today? After a couple of blocks, I cut right down another street, hastily dodging honking cars and pedestrians in my way. I looked back to see the sedan turn too. I instantly regretted getting a bright red backpack at the beginning of the school year. I ran down a one-way street that went in the opposite direction than what I was running. That way they couldn't follow. Then I made my way down to Forsyth Park. I ran into the park thinking that they would have to get out of the car if they wanted to chase me in there. I ran until I reached the fountain towards the middle of the park to stop and take a breath. I had a stitch in my side and I was sweating like nobody's business. But I was still riding on the adrenaline wave, so after a few deep breaths and a couple stretches, I started running again. I took one of the paths radiating out from the fountain, the one that came out at Hall Street. Quickly looking up and down the street for the black sedan, I noticed a brightness coming from the outside patio of the restaurant across the street. "You've got to be kidding me," I thought. The brightness was coming from the brawny, well-dressed guy I had seen going into Adelina's the other day. Today he wore a nice button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows and a pair of high-end dark slacks. His hair was styled fashionably and his watch looked expensive. The only thing keeping him from looking like a normal, well-built businessman were the tattoos on his forearms and at the base of his neck. The tattoos had a strange, iridescent quality that I had never seen before, and there was something about him that felt different from other people. He had been standing up from his table to take some money out of his wallet to leave a tip for the waitress when I had stopped. Putting his wallet back into his pocket, he looked up as though he sensed something that surprised him. to see me standing there staring at him from across the street. He looked at me strangely at first. I couldn't tell if he was confused or angry. Then his eyes fell to my sternum, and they widened in disbelief. I looked down and realized that my necklace must have come out from under my shirt while I was running. He looked like he was about to come over and rip it right off my neck. And I thought, sorry, shiny man, not today. I tucked the jewel back into my shirt, and then I saw the sedan coming down the road towards me. The passenger window was rolling down, and I saw one of the suits holding some sort of strange gun. Scalp tingling, I pivoted on my left foot and dashed back into the park. I had to dig deep to keep going at a fast pace. Every breath was agony, but I had to keep going or the suits, and now shiny man, would catch up to me. When I felt like I couldn't go another step, I hit my second wind. Only this wasn't a normal burst of energy. The world started to go into slow motion, like it had in my dream. For a second, I thought that the suited guy must have shot me and I died back out the street. It didn't seem possible, but as I left the park behind, I was going about a block per second. It was so surreal. I didn't feel scared anymore, though. I didn't feel anything but pure focus as I maneuvered around cars and pedestrians that seemed to be going at a snail's pace. I kept going till I saw Miss Ruby driving in her tan Corolla. She was coming up to the corner of Abercorn. I tried to stop, and I almost fell flat on my face from my momentum, something I had to work on. After regaining my balance, I jumped up and down, waved my arms, and screamed her name to get her attention. I knew I could trust her to get me home to safety. She was friends with my mom, and I had known her since I was little. When Ruby saw me, she stomped on the brakes and screeched to a halt right in front of me. She rolled down the passenger window and yelled, "Get in the car, Kira!" I opened the door and jumped in. I managed to cough out between deep breaths. "Miss Ruby, there are people chasing me. I need to get home." She kept on driving down Henry Street in the opposite direction of my house. She gave me a sad, lopsided smile. "I'm so sorry, baby girl, but you can't go home now." My chest constricted and the blood rushed from my head. "What do you mean I can't go home?" I screeched. Maybe I had made a horrible mistake trusting Ruby. I locked in on her intentions, and they were still only for my well-being. Keeping her eyes on the road, she tried to answer in a calm, reassuring voice. "We had hoped that you'd be able to stay longer with the Rileys until you were grown, but it seems that they found you too soon." Oop. I teared up, and now I'm getting moisturizer in my eye. Ah! Oh, goodness. I don't really have any cloths in here. I guess it's the shirt's duty. Oh. Ugh. "We had hoped you'd be able to stay longer with the Rileys until you were grown, but it seems that they found you too soon." "Wait, who's this we, and who the heck is they?" I yelled, feeling frustrated and confused. She gave me a quick look of reproach and then returned to her focus to the road. "Now there's a lot I need to tell you, but you need to try to calm down. Panicking and yelling isn't going to help the situation." I wanted to scream at her for having the nerve to tell me to calm down after she just told me I could never go back home. But I needed to calm down if I wanted her to answer my questions. So I took a couple deep breaths and tried to calm myself. "That's better," she soothed. "Now, the we is my sister and I. We are what you would call seers or oracles." "Oracles? Like from ancient Greece?" I asked skeptically. "Are you going to listen or are you just going to scoff?" she reprimanded. I shut my mouth. Who was I to question with all the crazy stuff that had been happening to me recently? And maybe she really had spoke straight into my mind when I was 5. She looked over and saw that I was contrite, so she nodded. "Okay, I don't know exactly who they are. I only know that they are very powerful with a long reach, and they like to swoop in and grab up the most talented progeny they can find. For what purpose? I don't know, but no one ever sees those people again. My blood ran cold. Briggs really was trying to kidnap me. Hold on. Who are the progeny? And do the suits think that I am one of them? She let out a long breath through her nose. The short story is that the progeny are the descendants of an ancient race of celestial beings that, got intimate with humans long ago. Celestial beings? Are you talking about angels or aliens? She cleared her throat and then tried to skim over my question. Yes. Anyway, the bloodlines have been so watered down with human DNA that now only a few people show any traits that have managed to get passed down. Have you ever heard of junk DNA? Yeah, non-coding protein DNA. She looked over and gave me a surprised smile. That's right. Well, it's extremely rare, but when certain people get together, sometimes that DNA gets activated, giving their baby so-called supernatural abilities. As to whether you are progeny or not, I don't think so. You're different than them somehow. You're able to do and see things even the most talented progeny can't. How did she know what I could do or see? I haven't told anyone about that. She saw the question on my face and pointed to her eyes to remind me that she was a seer, or an oracle, or whatever she was. If I'm not a progeny, then what are the suits after? How did they find me? Tell me, has anything happened to you lately that seemed out of the norm or strange? I nodded, and I told her about what happened with Rachel, Walter, and the necklace. Then I took it out to show her. She looked over and then blew out a low whistle in amazement. And the suits weren't the only ones that were chasing me, I told her. Walter had said that people with gifts, or I assume progeny, had brighter energy. Well, before I found you, there was this really bright guy who seemed to be very interested in this necklace. Ruby tapped her fingers on the steering wheel. Well, the suits, as you call them, have ways of pinpointing spikes of energy that progeny put off when they use their gifts. You have the very rare and unique ability to amplify that energy, which includes the ability of progeny. I don't know about the necklace, but I'd stay away from the bright ones if I were you. They might not want to let you go once you boost their abilities. I agree that was not in my best interest, but that got me thinking. You're not brighter than a normal person, but you said you have the gift of sight? Aren't you a progeny? She shook her head. No, I'm all human DNA. But humans have always had the potential to tap into the ethos. Prophets, seers, and the like are just more inclined to do so. I had no idea what ethos was. She smiled and said, the Greeks called it apeiron, but my people have called it ethos as far back as anyone can remember. It is the limitless energy of the cosmos, the stuff that connects us to everything in the universe, the matter and the void, where everything is created and destroyed. It's the energy that you're blessed to be able to see with your own eyes. When you tap into the ethos, anything is possible. I'm only able to get glimpses of it now and then. My sister Cass is much more adept than me, but we both saw you coming. I looked over at her in surprise. You had a vision about me? She nodded. Visions aren't like watching the television. There is a lot of interpreting that has to be done. But I saw that a child of limitless promise was going to come from the water with a storm from the east, and that the child must have a firm foundation in order to grow strong and true. Then I saw two saplings, one that grew in the light, and one that was shadowed from the sun and grew in darkness. The sapling that grew in the shadows became twisted and bent to the will of the weeds around it, and it poisoned the earth with its rotten fruit. The sapling that was bathed in sunlight grew to be a strong, mighty tree whose branches spanned into the heavens, whose fruit would nourish and enlighten the souls of man. I thought that vision couldn't possibly be about me. It was impossible. The burden of the souls of man couldn't be on my shoulders. If it hadn't been for that bit in the beginning about coming from the water, that vision could be about anyone. Every child has limitless promise, don't they? Ruby continued. We tried to give you the best beginning we could by putting you with a family like the Rileys. I called in a lot of favors to get you there, but now you must use the firm foundation they've given you and continue to grow in the light on your own, baby girl. Ruby kept on driving out of town and then merged onto I-75 towards Atlanta. My heart broke and I asked her, "You're really not going to take me home, are you?" Sadness and empathy filled her eyes as she slowly shook her head no. She said, "I know it's a lot to ask of you, but you have to let them go. Those bad people after you will use them to get to you, by any means necessary. And believe me, they are not above using torture to get the information they want. If your family believes that you're dead, then they won't be a source of information about you anymore. It's best if you distance yourself away from them as much as possible. I'll take care of everything else." I sat there trying to take this all in. I thought, how could I leave my family? They took me in and loved me as their own, and this is how I repay them? By pretending that I'm dead and breaking their hearts? They're all I had in the world. I'm still just a kid, for heaven's sake. But if I truly love them, I would do anything to keep them safe, even if that means being dead to them. In that moment, my dream with Absalom made sense to me. He told me that I had to let go for their sakes. But let go into what? What's in the abyss? I sniffed and wiped away my tears, which I should probably do the same. Where am I supposed to go? I asked. Ruby patted my leg. Don't you worry about that, baby girl. I'm taking you to Atlanta, where you'll get on a bus to New Orleans. That's where my sister Cass lives, and she'll make sure you're taken care of. Well, at least I'm not totally on my own, I thought. The adrenaline that had been coursing through my veins was finally wearing down, and I felt like all my energy had been drained away. My eyelids started to droop, and I blinked in and out, trying to stay awake. Ruby looked over and saw my head bobbing. You go ahead and sleep now. It'll be a couple of hours till we get there. I wasn't going to argue, and with a second I was out cold. And that was the very exciting chapter, chapter 9, where Kira's Riley life has just changed forever. Once again. I look forward to seeing you all in chapter 10. Oh, I've got to get ready for work soon. I wonder if I can do one more chapter before I have to go. Oh, the next chapter is super short. We're just going to go right on ahead to chapter 10. And it rounds out nicely at the end of it. So we're just going to go for it, and then I'll call it a night. Chapter 10. I was awakened by a slap to the face. My eyes popped open to see Ruby leaning over me, shaking my shoulders. "Did you just slap me?" I asked, incredulous. She sighed in relief and leaned back against the open passenger door. "Oh, I'm sorry, baby, but I couldn't wake you up and you were fighting me." I sat up and looked at the red mark on the side of her face. I gasped. "Oh, Ruby, did I do that to you? I'm so sorry." She stepped back from the door. "It's all right, honey. Don't you worry about it. Come on out." I got out of the car and stretched. We were parked in front of a Salvation Army thrift store. She said, "Leave your bag in the car and tuck that necklace back in your shirt. We need to get you some different clothes and out of that uniform. We don't need to be broadcasting where you came from." That made sense, so I did what she told me to. Then she locked the car and we went inside. She told me, "Pick out 2 shirts and 2 pairs of pants. I'll go find you some shoes. What size do you wear?" My mind was still waking up, so it took me a second before I answered. Size 7? nodded and went straight... I'll restart that sentence just in case. My mind was still waking up, so it took me a second before I answered. Size 7? She nodded and went straight for the shoes. I stood there for a second to get my bearings, and then went towards the pants rack. I picked up 2 pairs of jeans that were about my size, and then went over to the t-shirt rack. I had to find something that didn't stand out, so nothing bright or neon. I found a plain black shirt that seemed to fit, and then I saw this faded blue vintage Adidas shirt. I love retro stuff, so I couldn't pass that up, so I grabbed that too. Ruby was waiting for me up front. She held these black Chuck Taylors and my dark gray hoodie. I gave her the clothes I picked out, and she went over to the counter to pay for them. I felt bad that she was buying me a bunch of stuff, but there was nothing I could do about it right then. As we walked back to the car, she told me to change in the back and to put my shoes and uniform in the plastic bag. After I did what she told me, I climbed back up front and buckled up as she pulled out of the parking lot and got back on the highway. Apparently, I'd been out for almost 3.5 hours on the way to the thrift store, because we were already about 20 minutes outside of Atlanta. I thought about Jack. He had been living and working in Atlanta for the past 10 years, and he usually came home on holidays or long weekends. I thought about saying goodbye to him before I left, but no, I had to keep him out of this. He'd be better off if I didn't lead the suits straight to his door. So instead, I thought about the first time I met him. He had come home for the weekend to meet me. I'd started talking by then, so after I gave him a shy greeting, he gave me one of his famous smiles and said, "Hello, baby sister." He radiated kindness, and I liked him right away. Jack's a really talented artist and works as a graphic designer. One time he made a pen and ink drawing of me. It depicted me with an enigmatic Mona Lisa smile, and my eyes were painted in a wash of Ceylon blue watercolor. He had somehow made me look innocent and knowledgeable at the same time. When I asked him if that was how he really saw me, he said that when he looked at me, he saw a beautiful little girl with an old soul. My parents still have that picture framed up in the upstairs hall, next to the drawings he's done of Lydia, Sadie, and Hector. As we drove by the road that I knew led towards Jack and Stacy's house, I quietly said, "Goodbye, big brother." When Ruby was finally able to find a parking spot across from the bus station, she quickly pulled in and turned off the engine. "Get your bag and come back to the trunk," she instructed. When she opened up the trunk, there was a large tote bag stuffed in the back corner. She pulled it forward and started rooting around, searching for something. "Okay, here's a universal bus pass that will let you ride on any Greyhound bus to anywhere you need to go, for up to a year." She put it in my hand, and then turned back to the tote and picked out something else. She placed a Visa card and a roll of cash in my other hand. "That's a prepaid credit card, so it won't be traced back to an account when you use it. There's $200 on that, and that's $100 in cash. It should get you by for a bit if you're frugal. Or that, if you're frugal." "How did you know? Were you just driving around with this stuff in the back of your car?" I asked. She smirked, pointing to her eyes again. "I had a vision you'd need my help, so I called up Cass and she saw the same thing. We were prepared." I looked down at the item she had put into my hands. "I can't take all this, Miss Ruby. It's too much." She looked me in the eyes. "You can and you will. No arguments," she insisted in a strict tone. She went back into the tote and pulled out some protein bars and a bottle of water. "All right, now put that stuff and the extra clothes into your bag, and then put your school stuff into the tote." As I did what she said, I said goodbye to my old life. "Now when you go in there," she continued, "get on the 8:30 p.m. bus to New Orleans. My cousin, Jean-Baptiste, will meet you down there at the station. He's a big, bald, black man with a bit of a Creole accent. He'll be looking for you." "Wait, you're not coming in there with me?" I asked her. She shook her head. No, honey, the less we're seen together, the easier it will be for you to disappear. They have security cameras in there. In fact, put that jacket on and pull the hood over your hair. It'll be harder to see you from above. I pulled out the gray hoodie, slipped it on, zipped it up, and then pulled the hood over my head. I put the cash in my bag and then slipped it on my shoulders. I put the card and the bus pass in my jeans pocket. Ruby looked me over and then asked me if I had a watch. I shook my head. She took off her own watch and put it on my wrist. Here, take this until you can get another one. I was about to protest, but she preempted me by putting her finger on my lips, effectively hushing me. Then she enveloped me in a goodbye hug. I squeezed her back, tears threatening to break free. I owed her so much. She'd been looking out for me this whole time. She pulled back, kissed my forehead, and then wiped the tears from her own eyes. I wish you all the luck in the world, baby girl. Don't worry, you're gonna be just fine. I nodded my head, wanting to believe her with all my heart. Bye, Ruby. Thanks for everything. My voice broke on the last word. She squeezed my shoulders. Dry those tears now and get on now. You don't want to miss that bus. It'll get there in the morning so you can sleep on the way. I nodded and then gave her one last quick hug before I turned to go across the street into the station. Finding my bus wasn't difficult, but I'd never taken public transportation before, so I took out my bus pass and kind of held it out in front of me so the bus driver could see it. The driver was a big, paunchy guy with a full beard. He sported a name tag that said Frank. He nodded at my pass and then noticed my hesitancy. This your first time? He asked. I nodded. You by yourself? I nodded again. Yes, sir. I'm going to visit my grandmother. I thought to myself, oh geez, that was lame. I sound like a little Red Riding Hood reject. I have to get better at this. He seemed satisfied with my answer, though, so he nodded and gestured back towards the seats. Take any seat you want, darling. Don't worry about a thing. I'll keep an eye out for you. I smiled and thanked him, moving back towards the middle seats. I didn't want to be too far back in case I had to make a quick exit, but I also didn't want to be too up front in case Frank wanted to get chummy. That would make it harder for him to forget me. So I picked 2 empty seats in the exact middle of the bus and sat in the one by the window, putting my bag in the other seat, hoping no one would need to sit there. People started filing in, picking their own 2 seats and not paying any attention to me. My stomach growled and reminded me that I hadn't eaten dinner. So I dug around in my bag looking for the protein bars and water. I managed to scarf down both bars and half the water in record time. I decided to put the pass and the credit card in the front pocket of my bag, where I found Sadie's old iPod that she'd given me and my earbuds. Thank the Lord I forgot I put those in there. The battery was still charged, which was a small miracle. I turned it on and stuck the earbuds in. The music was soothing, and the earbuds would help to make sure that no one would try to talk to me. I took off my hoodie and then balled it up against the window to use as a pillow. The bus doors closed, and Frank pulled away from the station. As the music poured into my ears, my last thought before I fell asleep was, okay, Absalom, here I go into the abyss. And that was the end of chapter 10. We are on to chapter 11, but like I said, I need to get ready for work, and I need to rotate my animals. I have 12 dogs, so I need to get them all ready for me to be gone for the night. I want to keep reading, but that was a good spot to stop. So here we have the ending of chapters 9 and 10. Thank you for joining me. Whenever people do start joining me. I guess that's it. I'll see you next time for chapter 11. I hope you guys are enjoying this book as much as I am. I know for myself, I'm a visual learner, not an auditory learner, so not everyone can do the auditory books, but I know a lot of people do listen to books on tape and whatnot, so hopefully someone finds this pleasurable to listen to while they're working or riding their bike or taking a walk, hopefully. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.